So now we will going to be for the third speaker, which is Dr. Ahmad Al-Muhammadi. So Dr. Ahmad actually is a lecturer of political science and Islamic studies at the International Islamic University, Malaysia. So besides lecturing at the university, he engaged extensively as an analyst with domestic and international agencies in the research and counter-terrorism work. I would like to pass the floor to Dr. Ahmad to share his presentation. So please, Dr. Ahmad. Yeah.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Hello, sir.
Okay, I try to speak louder.
Okay, that's good, Doctor.
Okay, thank you very much. Dr. Mizan for introducing me. Mak Rabi, thank you very much again for inviting me to join these programs. Co-panelists, Irene, Dr. Inaya, and Akiko. It is a pleasure also to have all of you here in this discussion. First and foremost, I would like to congratulate Aman and also the coordinating ministry for political law, legal and security, Republic of Indonesia, for organizing these programs. It is very timely for us to have this discussion, even though at the moment a lot of programs are cancelled because of COVID-19, but we are not actually taking that path. We continue doing what we do, and we keep this momentum going, and I believe that it is good. In this discussion today, I would like to mention to you or share with you 6 points I have shared already in the group just now, the presentation that I would like to use for this presentation. So the topic of my presentation today is the returning foreign fighters and vulnerability of women. So I would like to mention 6 points, as I said: fact and figures regarding the foreign fighters, Malaysia's approach to the returning fighters and their families, the returnees policy and strategy, women returnees and children in the context of rehabilitation and reintegration, and also some updates about Malaysian in Syria. Let us go to the first part. That is point number 1. If you look at the figure right now, you can see that there are 100 and I cannot see now, 102 person who used to travel to Syria since 2013. 40 were killed, 9 become suicide bomber, and 51 still in Syria. Returning back here, 11. That is the official statistic of Malaysian who are returning back. But actually, there are more than 11 now. That's what I heard, but it is an official figure. So that was the first point. The second point is what is Malaysian doing with this? So I'm going to refer to the statement made by the former counter-terrorism chief. We are trying to bring them home, but the situation is difficult as it involves many parties from different countries. So this is our position, that is to bring them back home, whatever it is. As a matter of fact, before this decision to bring them back or repatriation, Malaysian government was quite reluctant to take them back because they believe that it is not worth it. But given the situation, after or toward near the end of the ISIS, more actually refugees came out from Syria, and therefore Malaysian government decided to take them back, believing that if we do not take them back home, they will cause problem to another country. So that was a decision. However, not everyone will be detained, but all of them, or all returning, will be interrogated in order to get information, and we will conduct thorough checks and investigation on each returnee. We will compare intelligence which we receive from friendly foreign services. If there is evidence that the returnee was involved in ISIS militant activity, he or she will be charged in court. So basically, this is the position that we take with regards to the returnee. What is the returnee here? Because that is point number 3. Who are they? Returnee, we refer to the Malaysian who traveled to Syria in Iraq between 2013 and 2019, because right now we do no longer receive anyone coming back from that part of the world. They consist of men and women and children. Some of them brought their family from Malaysia, and some married in Syria with Malaysian or foreigners. Because we also have cases, Malaysian ladies getting married with foreigner. For example, former wife of Wandi, after the death of Wandi, she got married with one Belgian, and right now they separated because of the attack by the countries in there. So they separated. He is living in different location, and she is living in different location. But after some time, she believed that her husband has died, so she decided to come home. I'll tell you the story at the end of the presentation, what happened to her. And some of them have returned willingly before the fall of ISIS. That was happened before, and detained and charged under SOSMA and Penal Code 130. And now 40 individuals requested to be repatriated to Malaysia, and majority of them are women and children, particularly widows, because their husband, the fighters, died in fight. Regarding the strategy or the policy and strategy, of course, first is repatriation. All of them who are willing to come home, the government of Malaysia is making the arrangement to bring them home. However, investigation will be conducted with the foreign assistance, judicial process if they are found to be participating in taking arms, and rehabilitation, of course, to all of them. And the assessment are to be made in the aspect of security, psychological, and ideological. And after the terms of detention is over, they're going to be released, and reintegration process will take place, and it's involved interagency cooperation, and finally monitoring. Continuous monitoring will be done. So the women returnee and children, so in the context of rehabilitation and reintegration, as I said earlier, the assessment they need to make is on security, psychological, and ideological. And it's also involved women rehabilitation panel from the academia involved in the assessment and rehabilitation, because before this, we do not have women panel rehabilitation. And they are placed in the special facility, especially women with children. And they will go through this 3 months or more rehabilitation assessment. And if there is nothing that involve activities, militancy, and so on, they will return to their family, and monitoring will be done. So recently, the counterterrorism chief make an announcement that the women that went through rehabilitation program has now returned to her family, and she continued to be monitored, and we are keeping an eye on them. This is very significant statement in my view, because it shows that even though they were released, but we still keep an eye on them in order to make sure that they do not involve again, or they do not try to involve in any way in these activities. The last part of my talking point is the situation of Malaysian in Syria right now, because if you remember, towards the end of 19, Malaysian government announced that they will make an arrangement for Malaysians to return home. So what happened to them right now? Yes, some of them, we managed to get them back, but some of them, because of the situation has changed in the locality in Syria, with the withdrawal of the United States, for example, has left a kind of security vacuum in there. So ISIS start to come home, to come back again, and what happened to them? So what happened to these people? They refuse to return. We have Malaysians who prefer to stay in there and do not accept the offer of repatriation. That is number one. Number two, the change of heart. They're changing their mind after being influenced by other detainees not to return home, and hoping the return of IS. This is also based on my conversation with one of them who are detained in the refugee camp. I tried to convince her to return back to Malaysia, but she said I want to stay here. And until now, she's staying in the camp and hoping that the ISIS will return. And the third category is missing and unknown. We also have this category of Malaysian in there. We cannot locate at all. So these are the 6 talking points to begin with. If you have any question, then we can entertain the question. I welcome them. Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator.
One, actually, they asked from Mbak Ruby, actually, how the people react with such a policy implemented by the Malaysian government in bringing back to the returnees. The second one, they are also Mr. Isa Aksa from Malaysia also asking about what kind of rehabilitation programs for women and children. Okay, Dr. Ahmad, please.
Thank you very much. The first question by Ruby, I would say, can you hear me?
Yes. Okay.
There are three reaction from that decision, government's decision to bring them back. Number one, they completely oppose that decision because they say that it's going to create problem inside the country, and the children that coming back from there is going to be the new generation of jihadists. That is number one. Number two, many agree with government's decision to bring them back, believing that if we bring them back, then we can solve the problem internally. We can put them in rehabilitation, and then the problem can be settled here. And number three, some group of people are not sure. They're quite confused, like whether or not it is a good idea to bring them back, or it is better to let them stay in there. So these are among the three the reaction from that decision. But I believe that majority agreed with government decision to bring them back, because we have cases before that if we let them to stay in there, they're going to create another problems. Second question is, of course, number one, I would say there is a very little research on women rehabilitation in Malaysia. Perhaps in Indonesia, we have a lot. Therefore, I think we can focus on this in future. And women's rehabilitation is, in this context today, is conducted by women academics and expert. I mentioned about this because before this, we did not have women's expert involved in rehabilitation. So government recently decided to recruit academics, women's academics, female academic to participate in this rehabilitation program and give them opportunity to speak, to dialogue, to interview them, and to assess them. So I mentioned in my presentation before, there are three components of assessment. Security assessment is done by the police, so it is not us who done this. Psychological assessment is done by psychologists appointed by the police. So they're going to use psychological tools, interviews, assessment, and so on. And ideological assessment is done by academics like me and a few other academics as well. So basically, there are three levels of assessment. We look at number one, diagnostic phase. We try to find out the level of exposure to the ideology, whether or not they accept or not. And so this is the first part. And the analytical, we analyze, and finally, we come up with a specific kind of response to that kind of ideological deviation.